It's inside the GIAA week number 2, presented by the Beck Center of Academic and Athletic Success. Thank you to Roger Beck and the Beck Center for what they do for all GIAA. They have an incredible center, Richard, that's got indoor facility. It's got a film room. It's got so many conference rooms. It is a perfect place for kids to get better. Batting cages, that's where they have wrestling matches, wrestling practice, football practice, you name it. They can have it there at the Beck Center of Academic and Athletic Success. Richard, it's week number 2, and this week it is virtual. Normally, we're going to be inside the Beck Center, bringing you live coverage of everything happening in the GIAA. But this week, because of a snowstorm that is hitting where we reside in Columbus, Georgia, the roads are too icy. We didn't want to take that chance getting out, but technology allows us to continue to do this show here tonight. I know you're excited about it.
Oh, absolutely. I know that we would normally be at the Beck Center, but we couldn't even get out of our driveway this morning. I know that it's a little bit better, but we didn't want to risk it. And so I'm excited to get on another show for Inside the GIAA talking winter sports.
Yeah, and a lot of updates that are going to be happening in tonight's show. So, like I made mention and what we did last week, we got segments that we love being able to update you everything happening in the sports world around the GIAA. After this intro, we'll have our update and what's happening with basketball. The updated rankings came out. We're going to do each classification. We're going to give you our thoughts on them. After that, we got a segment called A Few Good Minutes, and we're going to have a few good minutes talking to the number 1 team in 2A girls, Central Fellowship's Harold Riley, who has his team 18-1 right now, Richard. And then for the boys, Coach Joe Jerome, who has played in multiple state championships, has a premier program at Heritage, and they just skyrocketed. They were number 3 last week, or 4. Now they're number 1. I look forward to talking with Coach Joe Jerome and Harold Riley. After that, we'll get our updates that are happening in swim and wrestling. We got correspondents, boots on the ground, going to give us up-to-date information on what's happening in swim and wrestling. And then we're going to end it with Commissioner's Corner with Coach Tommy Marshall, who just, by the way, in December got inducted to the NIAAA Hall of Fame. So congratulations to him. I look forward to having him on.
Yes, I'm excited to talk about GIAA sports here. We got some fantastic coaches and getting ready to talk with the commissioner. It's always great. And as always, we're presented by the Beck Center, and I'm ready to talk some winter sports.
Yeah, I am too, Richard. And we hope everyone stays safe through the storm these last week. We've had a lot of snow coming to Atlanta, now below Atlanta into Florida. So all those counties that experienced snow, we hope you enjoyed it. You hope you stayed safe, stayed warm, and then we can get back to action on the court, on the wrestling mat, or whether it be at an archery competition, at a swim meet, whatever it is. Hopefully the sports will resume, Richard. But I know I enjoyed playing in the snow. I don't care how old I am. I don't care what age you are, especially when you live in a place where you don't get much snow or weather like what we just experienced. You're going to take advantage of it, and I know you did as well.
Look, I know our friends up in Tallulah Falls is probably used to the snow, but let me tell you something. Columbus hasn't seen snowfall since 2018, and I know in the past we've had snow up in Atlanta with Snowmageddon in 2014, and a lot of these GIAA schools down in South Georgia may have never seen snow, but until this weekend.
Yeah, exactly right. We are again presented by the Beck Center. All right. So we have coming up, we're going to talk about basketball that's happening, and I'm telling you, there is some major moves, major shakes going on in the rankings, Richard, and we know it may ruffle some feathers, but again, how they do their process, I respect it so much with the GIAA. I think these are probably the most fair rankings out there right now, and I'm thoroughly enjoy the fact that they use these rankings to be able to seed teams heading into the playoffs. So can't wait for that. And I know we got an update too. We said last week that on Tuesday was going to be the archery competition, but because of inclement weather, Richard, they had to reschedule the date.
Yes, the new date for the archery competition in Statesboro is going to be on the 28th of January. It was actually originally the 11th. They moved it to the 21st, but because of the inclement weather, they will have that on the 28th.
and all those that are watching that didn't watch last week, this is a new show we're going to be doing every Wednesday and leading up to every state championship, the major state championships like in basketball, baseball, softball, of course, football. And we got the basketball ones coming up at Bruton Parker, the semifinals, Bruton Parker and Columbus State. The finals back at Columbus State University at the Lumpkin Center. Can't wait for that. That is the last week of February. The semifinals are on February 25th and 26th and 27th. The state finals are on the February 28th and March 1st. And you'll be able to get update information on how to watch these games. And we also got something in the mix, Rich, where for those teams that make the quarterfinals, we always do the semifinals and the finals. We may have you action to be able to watch the quarterfinals too on GIAA.tv. We'll have more information with that coming up real soon, but excited to be the voices in another year doing a state championship and can't wait for it, Richard.
And I can't wait for the 12 teams that get into the GIAA basketball bracket.
Yeah.
You've got the first round games are going to be at the host schools. And so if you're an 8 seed, you're a 7 seed, you're going to be hosting. And then the quarterfinals have always been in Macon. They've either been at FPD, Stratford, or at Tatnall.
Yep.
They have the 3 locations in Macon where all the classifications go for the quarterfinals. So that hasn't changed. The only change is, there might be a different way on how to see them.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about those basketball rankings that everybody's been excited about. We're about a couple weeks away from region tournament and then heading into that first round. So we're going to see who are the top teams in the GIAA basketball. Up next on Inside the GIAA, presented by the Beck Center.
This copyrighted broadcast, presented exclusively on GIAA.tv, is copyrighted by the Georgia Independent Athletic Association, a division of the Georgia Independent School Association, for the private use of our audience. It may not be retransmitted, reproduced, rebroadcast, or otherwise distributed or used in any form without the express written consent of the Georgia Independent School Association.
And we're back. And we're back here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live, and it is time now to talk some basketball rankings, Richard. Again, these rankings can be found on GIAAsports.org. Go to GIAAsports.org, click on the sports tab, click on basketball. You'll see girls and boys basketball rankings. And then
I do want to say we are actually live on GIAA.tv.
Okay, and we're also on GIAA.tv. We're on Facebook, and we are on YouTube right now. But Richard, go back to what I was just saying about the rankings. These can be found on GIAAsports.org. We made some graphics for it, but these can be at the palm of your hand right now. Just visit the website. Such a great website to navigate everything newsworthy, everything with score updates. They do such a great job. Tony Morgan, Banks, and everyone in charge of GIAAsports.org. All right, Richard, let's go ahead and start with the girls' rankings.
All right, well, the number 1 team in the girls Class 1A is Fullerton Academy. I mean, they've had just a fantastic season, a 14-3 record. Remember, it's about who you played. Some of these teams in the lower classifications have played teams in 2A and 3A and 4A and so on. St. George comes in at 11-3. Robert Toombs at 10-8. You look at their record; they played a lot of games, and they are the 3rd-ranked team. You got Memorial Day, which is number 4. I know it says number 3, but they're number 4. They got a 10-4 record. Citizens Christian Academy with a 9-9 record. Crisp Academy with a 10-10 record. You got Covenant Academy coming in at 6-8. Flint River Academy, which is up in Woodbury, with a 6-6 record. John Hancock 5-11, and Thomas Jefferson 3-12. Remember, the top 12 teams in Class 1A make the playoffs.
That is a great point, Richard. And we had Fullerton Academy's coach on last week talking about the program he has built there. And he actually coached the boys and then turned into coaching the girls. And he has a team that could win a state championship this year, Richard. So we are excited about them. They should be coming in as the number 1 team. I remember they played for a state championship last year. So we'll see if Fullerton Academy can't make it back. And a couple of teams, Robert Toombs, I think, is a team that could make a run. and get hot. And Citizens Christian, another team as well, that I think that, again, when all things are going right, I really like this Citizen Christian Academy team. But we only have the 10 up here. We know 12 teams would make the playoffs. So if Jan Hancock and Thomas Jefferson would both be hosting a first round, teams Flint River, I think it's Covenant, Flint River, John Hancock, Thomas Jefferson, and then the 11 and 12 teams all would be hosting. It's the top 6 that would get that first round bye. So 7 and 12, 8, 9, and then 10 and 11 would face each other. Is that right, Richard? Or is it this 10 teams that make it?
I actually do have the bracket. I know that the bracket looks very similar to the 2A, the 3A, and the 4A. So I'm actually on the GIAA website, which, by the way, it's a very good tool.
It is the top 10 teams. I'm sorry. It's 7, 10, 8, and 9 will face off in the first round, and the winners of 7, 10 would play the number 2 seed. The winner of 8, 9 would play number 1. I already knew that. Again, we cover so much.
We're used to the lower classification teams having less teams. Like in football, they only have 4 teams. But remember, there's a lot of smaller schools in the GIAA that have basketball teams, but they don't have a football team, like a LaGrange Academy, like a Furtop Prep.
Yeah, exactly right. So the top 10 teams do make it. All right, we'll move on to now the GIAA boys 1A rankings. Citizen Christian comes in at number 1. Number 2, First Preparatory comes in 8 and 3. LaGrange Academy comes in 9 and 4. I like LaGrange Academy. I remember playing them back when I was in high school. Robert really Toombs comes in number 4. Number 5, St. George. Number 5, Westwood. Number 6, Westwood. Number 7, Memorial Day. Number 8, Crisp Academy. Number 9, Flint River. And number 10, Grace Christian. So Grace Christian would be making the playoffs right now. Remember, 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9. If I am correct on that, we will have to. We may have to go and we already had this up to date in research, but we'll continue on. Here are the top boys team. But go ahead, Richard, and talk about the top 10 teams and the rankings.
Well, Citizens Christian, First Preparatory, LaGrange Academy, and Robert Toombs would all get buys. If this were to end the season to end today, St. George would play the number 12 seed. Westwood would play the number 11 seed. It would be Memorial Day hosting Grace Christian Academy and Crisp Academy hosting Flint River. And, of course, the quarterfinals are at Stratford, Tatnall, and FPD on February 21st and 22nd.
This happens, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to make a funny. This is stuff that we already talked about last week, but I came in, had a brain fart. The top 12 teams make it. It's 5 and 12, 6 and 11, 7 and 10, 8 and 9. The top 4 teams would then get buys in that first round. That's how they've done it every single year. That's how they did it last year. I don't know why we confused ourselves, Richard. But Robert Toombs, LaGrange, First Preparatory, and Citizen Christians would all be getting buys. But remember, we still got a lot of region play right now. But Citizen Christian, when looking at these 1A rankings for the boys, Richard, their strength is 5.31, and their rating is higher than everyone else. So there's a significant gap between them and First Preparatory. But then between First Preparatory and LaGrange and everybody else, an even bigger gap, Richard. So there's a big gap between 1 and 2, even bigger gap between 2 and 3. And then you got 3, 4, 5, 6. All of them are kind of like lumped in together. St. George, Westwood, Robert Toombs, and LaGrange Academy. So we're interested in seeing how the 1A classification is going to play out. Let's go into 2A now, Richard.
All right, so for the 2A girls, Central Fellowship, they are standing tall. The number 1 team in 2A, they are 18 and 1. That's followed by Southwest Georgia Academy out of Damascus. We have Brentwood, that's 12 and 4, and then Trinity Christian out of Dublin. So those first 4 teams would receive a first round bye. You got Edmund Burke coming in at number 5, Briarwood at number 6, Furtop Prep up there in Ackworth, Georgia, with an 11 and 4 record. Georgia Christian down in Valdosta. They got a pretty good basketball team. I know their coach, Drew Copeland, who was the flag football coach for Georgia Christian, as they went to the state championship in Statesboro. Sherwood Christian, their big-time rival in Albany, that just won a football championship. in eight-man football, and then Gatewood, that's up in the northeast corner in Edenton, Georgia, over there at Gatewood. So that's the top 10 for 2A, and we're gonna talk to the Central Fellowship Christian coach. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we are. And Central Fellowship coach Harold Riley has his team 18-1, ranked number 1. Remember, they lost to Piedmont in the state championship game last year. They're undefeated in the region play right now, Richard. Their only loss is to Piedmont, who is now a 3A team. So they are not in the 2A rankings. But, man, what an impressive start to the season for Central Fellowship. Southwest Georgia Academy, another team that is really good. So those two look like a collision course. Don't sleep on Brentwood or Trinity Christian. And I can easily see Edmund Burke or Briarwood try to move their way up to get one of those top 4 seeds to have a bye in the first round. Remember, 12 teams make the playoffs. So Gatewood would be taking on Furtop Prep, and Georgia Christian and Sherwood Christian would be playing against each other. And not in these rankings right now, Richard, is and looking at the 2A classification, I literally just had that pulled up here. Number 12, number 11. And now you don't want to pull up on me. And this is what happens with technology. Number 11, Westminster Christian Academy. And then number 12 would be Southland Academy. So Edmund Burke would host Southland, and Briarwood would host Westminster Christian Academy. All right, let's talk about the boys' rankings now in 2A, Richard, as you pull them up. We got number 1 team is Heritage. They played in the state championship the last 2 years and lost both of those games. So Coach Job Jerome is trying to overcome and get that over that hill to win another state championship. Number 2, Furtop Prep. You remember them last year, don't you, Richard?
Yeah, they were in the championship. Yeah,
they were in the championship game.
And they won.
So we could have Heritage and Furtop Prep playing against each other. Brentwood was number 1 last week, but Heritage jumped them this week. And if you look at the ratings, Heritage and Furtop Prep are right there neck and neck. But Brentwood actually went down some. So Heritage, Furtop Prep 1 and 2, Brentwood 3, Central Fellowship boys number 4, Rock Springs, number 5, Southwest Georgia number 6, Gatewood number 7, Georgia number 8. Christian, number 9, Augusta Prep Day, and number 10, Briarwood. Outside the rankings, Southland Academy and Heritage Preparatory would also be in. And I know, again, when everybody sees these rankings, it's not about your wins. It's about who did you win against.
Who'd you play?
Strength and schedule. Who you played is one of the, if not the biggest factor when going into these rankings. So I know you see a 14-4 Gatewood and like, how is Southwest, who's 9-8? Well, Southwest may have played tougher teams, which hence more losses, but doesn't mean that they're a worse team than Gatewood. That Gatewood played maybe teams that they knew they could take advantage of. So that is why the rankings are how they are. Any thoughts on these 2A rankings? It just seems normal. Heritage moves down a classification, still ranked number 1.
Of course. Yeah, you have an Edmund Burke team that would be on the outskirts. They would miss out on the playoffs. 9-5, and they would miss out on the playoffs. Unbelievable. That's how it is with these rankings. You got a team like Rock Springs Christian, who was in the gaps last year, making that transition to the GIAA. They're out of Milner. They're having a great season. I like seeing Georgia Christian in here as well. We saw them, with girls flag football. That's a very good program down there in Valdosta. And, of course, Augusta Prep Day. Everything that they had to deal with Hurricane Helene in that Augusta area is just good to see. Augusta, we know about Westminster Schools of Augusta, Augusta Prep Day. I mean, we've got some good schools in Augusta that really have overcome, everything that went on with Hurricane Helene.
All right, let's move on now to the 3A classification. And Richard and the girls, it looks like that defending state champion still ranked number 1.
Yeah, that Lakeview team that we saw in the championship last year at Columbus State.
Won the championship.
Yes, they won the championship. They are 11-6, and they are ranked number 1 because of the teams that they have played, followed by Piedmont Academy. How about Terrell Academy out of Dawson? They are undefeated, but they are ranked 3rd. And we know about, Deerfield Windsor is ranked 10th. they went to the championship, won the championship 2 years ago, but they lost a lot of players from that championship team. On the outskirts, we've got Dominion Christian and then St. Andrews. St. Andrews is actually number 12, Thrift Area Academy, number 13. Only 14 teams in 3A. By the way, but you got Westminster Schools of Augusta in there. I like the record. Westfield School, which is very unique. Westfield School out of Perry, Georgia, is the only 3A team in their region. They are in the same region with the 4A team, Strong Rock, Brookstone, Pacelli, and Calvary. So Westfield School, they play a bunch of 4A teams in their regular season, and so that's why they're ranked 5 in 3A, and their record reflects it. And then Brookwood, John Millage, Pinewood. I mean, this is a good list. I know that the 3A girls, we got some pretty good teams on here.
Yeah, we do, Richard. And I got to make mention, Frederica is also undefeated. But here's the thing. Terrell and Frederica Academy, both undefeated, but their rating is not that bad. Their rating is not far off from Lakeview and Piedmont. Here's where the biggest difference is. They have a negative strength of schedule, okay, compared to Lakeview's 12.1 strength of schedule. Piedmont has a 5.2. Terrell and Frederica, both in the negative. That is why they're undefeated and ranked number 3 and 4 instead of 1 and 2. Piedmont won the championship last year in 2A. They moved up to 3A. So Lakeview and Piedmont both won the state championship. Something may have to give if they face off against each other. Westfield's always been a school that has made deep runs in 4A. Now they're in 3A. They're a really good program, Richard. So looking forward. And Deerfield Windsor in their first year without their legendary head coach, having a few growing pains, but they're right there at number 10. And who knows, they could have a deep playoff run. All right, let's go to the boys in 3A. Number 1 is Brookwood, 19-1. Is Brookwood. Number 2, St. Andrews. Richard, we saw them last year. They come in 16-3. Deerfield Windsor, 15-1.
How about that?
They are. We saw them actually at a Board Awards tournament. They are an elite team. Deerfield Windsor, their only loss, Richard, came earlier this year as they lost to Brookwood. So the number 1 ranked team beat them 50-24, and Brookwood beat Deerfield Windsor at Deerfield Windsor. So that's how good Brookwood has been this year. Then moving forward, Lakeview, the returning champion, they're number 4. So that top 4 right there, man, I could flip a coin for how good those teams are. Number 5, Frederica Academy. Number 6, Thrift Area. Number 7, Westminster Schools of Augusta. Number 8, Bellwood. Number 9, Dominion Christian. Number 10, Terrell Academy. And then, of course, coming in the bottom half of the rankings, Richard,
still make the playoffs.
Number 11, Westfield, and number 12, John Millage. So they'll both would make the playoffs. Outside looking in, Pinewood and Piedmont. There's 14 3A schools, Richard. But I'm telling you, that top 4 list, Lakeview, Deerfield, Windsor, St. Andrews, Brookwood, if that is a preview of the semifinals, sign me up for every one of those games, and I cannot wait to call those games. Lakeview coming in as defending champion. Now, Lakeview has the toughest strength of schedule. They are at 7.3. The next closest is St. Andrews at 4.8. Brookwood and Deerfield Windsor have both a 1.5 and a 1.8 strength of schedule, but their rating is where it is. And St. Andrews is a little bit above, not even a point above Deerfield Windsor in the ratings. Brookwood is higher than everyone else, and Lakeview comes in at number 4. But we'll see how the season plays out, because Lakeview, the defending champion, Richard's got a tough schedule coming up. They play Tallulah Falls on Thursday, if that game still happens. They take on Athens Christian, who's ranked number 2 in 4A. They got Furtop Prep, we just talked about, ranked number 2 in 2A. So tough games. And then got Bethlehem Christian, Loganville, and then George Walton will round out them in the 3A classification. Richard, this is a heck of a list, man.
Really is a very good list. I like that Deerfield Windsor team. Happened to catch them. They were in a Christmas tournament and took on one of the top public schools in Alabama that 2 years ago they won the state championship, went undefeated, and they ended up winning that game. I talked to one of the coaches. They have some football players on that team that won the state championship, and Deerfield Windsor, the boys, they're looking really good. I know they had the one loss to Brookwood. But man, there's something down the water down in Albany because, you have like Sherwood Christian winning a championship. You've had the Deerfield Windsor boys winning a championship. The girls won a championship a couple years ago. Maybe this is the year that the Deerfield Windsor boys end up getting that championship along with their football team.
Let's go to 4A now, Richard. And in the 4A classification, no surprise, a team that has made the state championship in consecutive years is ranked number 1.
Yeah. That's a really good George Walton team that actually they were the number 1 overall seed last year. They got upset by Pacelli, but that I really don't think that was an upset when you're playing on really in your home city at Columbus State University. But this George Walton team is really good. Athens Christian, which is their first year in the GIAA. I'm not surprised that they're on this list as well. The Pacelli Vikings out of Columbus, Georgia, they are 12-2. They are ranked 3rd, and they have played some public schools, and so they have been tested. They lost to a school that's in Alabama, a 7A school. They also lost to a 4A school in Georgia, but they have beaten one of the top teams in 2A, the Hardaway Lady Hawks, which are also in Columbus. And I think that as Pacelli continues winning these region games, because they got to play Strong Rock, which right here is on our list. They got to play Westfield School. They got to play Calvary, which would be in the playoffs because they're down in the bottom of this list. And then Brookstone is their biggest rival. I think that they got a tough region, and I think that Pacelli might, go above Athens Christian or even George Walton when it's all said and done. Stratford Academy, always a tough team out of Macon. Their programs are just fantastic. Loganville Christian, I know despite their record, they do play a lot of a tough team. Strong Rock, which is in Pacelli's region, 17-2, which, by the way, these two schools will face off against each other this Friday. We got First Presbyterian Day, still great program over there in Macon. I'll tell you what, the Stratford, First Presbyterian Day, Tatnall Square, once they get to the quarterfinals, it's pretty much a home court advantage for them. And so that's what they want to do there. How about the Keens Academy, making that transition from the GAPS to the GIAA out of Woodstock, Georgia? They have been a talented GAPS team. Now they have no problem winning games in the GIAA. And then Mount DeSales, also another talented team in Macon. And then on the outskirts, Calvary Christian, their record 6-7. They actually do play Pacelli next week. And then you got Bullock Academy out of Statesboro. And then right below them is Tallulah Falls. So, only 12 make the playoffs. Could Tallulah Falls possibly jump Bullock Academy or Bethlehem Christian at 14, Brookstone at 15? Remember, there's only 17 teams in 4A girls. And there you could see playoff teams. You could see the 15 seed right now jump up and get maybe a possible playoff berth if they start winning some games.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, let's move to the 4A rankings now. And then for the boys, and number 1 coming in the boys is the undefeated Pacelli Vikings, the longest winning streak in the entire state, now at 28 games. They're undefeated this year. They just beat a 6A public school on Monday in Grovetown. They're elite. Athens Christian comes in 13-4, and they are an excellent team that I am looking forward to being able to see them play in their first year in the GIAA. The Kings Academy, another team the first year in the GIAA, they come in at number 3, number 4. Cristo Rey played in the semifinals last year. Number 5, Tatnall Square. Number 6, Stratford. Number 7, Bethlehem Christian. Number 8, the biggest move, Calvary Christian moves in the top 8. Number 9, Tallulah Falls. Number 10 is the Brookstone Cougars. Number 11, Mount DeSales. And number 12, Bullock Academy. Strong Rock looking on the outside in at 11-7, but they have a bad strength of record, a strength of schedule, and not a great rating either. Loganville, the team that played in the state last year, and George Walton, who played in the Final Four, both those teams are looking on the outside, along with Riverside Military, Fulton Science, and First Presbyterian Day. So we got some big games, including Brookstone and Calvary this Friday. We also got Athens Christian. They got to be taking on Tallulah Falls. That was supposed to be tonight. We don't know if the game was actually played, but they got Lakeview coming up next Tuesday. So I can't wait to be able to see that one. And then, of course, when looking at Stratford and Tatnall, they're going to have to be facing off against each other. They play in the same region. And looking at the Stratford Eagles, they got Tatnall Square twice, and they're playing them Monday at home, and then they play them again February the 7th. So here are your rankings for 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A girls and boys. We'll give you these up-to-date rankings every single week, and we'll let you know who's in the playoffs, who is going to be having a bye, and who is playing hot, who's not playing so well. It's inside the GIAA. We're going to take a break. When we come back, a few good minutes, and we're going to start with the head coach of Central Fellowship, Harold Riley, and then the head coach of the Heritage Hawks Boys program, Job Jerome, right here on Inside the GIAA, presented by the Beck Center on GIAA.tv.
GIAA.tv now brings you more live coverage of more sports than ever before. Announcing GIAA.tv Lite with live coverage of swim, wrestling, cheer, and more. GIAA.tv Lite is the next best thing to being there. From one screen, you will hear the crowd, see the action, the scores, the stats, and more. With no play-by-play or instant replays, GIAA.tv Lite is half the price of our regular broadcast. Announcing GIAA.tv Plus. With all of your fan favorites, GIAA.tv Plus now adds volleyball, softball, all-star football, and more. Featuring all the play-by-play, instant replays, multiple angles, and more, all for less than the cost of 2 adult tickets to the event. Don't miss 1 second of the action all year long, only on GIAA.tv.
Shout out to Brett Taylor with that one, man. Whew, that was a great.
That was great.
Commercial. I love his voiceover work. Great job, BT. Love you, brother. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. It's time now for a few good minutes. And we're going to have a few good minutes now with the head coach of Central Fellowship. He has his team 18-1 on the season. He is head coach Harold Riley. Coach, thank you so much for joining the program, and congratulations on such a hot start.
I appreciate you guys for having me.
All right, Coach, let's talk about it. Your team comes in 18-1 this year. We'll start there first. What's been the key to this early success, being 18-1, and your only loss coming against a really good Piedmont team that will be playing in a 2A classification? So talk about what your team's success has been this year.
Just a great overall team effort. Started out the season very strong against Piedmont, winning the first game of the season. And from that, we just built on that momentum. Went on maybe, I want to say, a 17-game winning streak.
Yeah.
Came back from the Christmas break and ended up losing it. Well, beat Piedmont again in the Christmas tournament, and then came back and lost a week later to Piedmont. But outside of that, it's just been a great start.
Coach, talk about your captain leader, the senior guard, Avery Queen. What are some of her attributes that allow her to make good decisions on the court and really to lead the team on the floor?
Oh, just a great overall young lady. She's been playing within the system since the 7th grade, so she has, we'll say, 6 good years of experience. She's been on the Final Four team for the last. We've been 5 straight Final Four, so with 2 state titles, and she was a part of that as well. So, just her overall knowledge and understanding on what we want overall has been major for the younger players that we have.
That's awesome, Coach. And let's get into some background history of what led you to coaching. So what is it about basketball that you love, that you play in college? I know you obviously played in high school. What ultimately led you? Give us a quick synopsis, backstory, if you will, man, of what led you to this point now being the head coach of Central Fellowship.
Well, actually, I'll say my daughters. Been around and came for a while. Actually been coaching for the youth level for about 17 years total.
Wow.
From the AAU side up until the high school side, and just watching my daughters and understanding the game and wanting to give back to the young ladies is what kind of motivated me to be a part of Central Fellowship.
Coach, last year you lost to the number 1 seed Piedmont Academy in the Final Four at Bruton Parker. They eventually went on to win the championship. What would it mean to you to end up playing Piedmont Academy and get to at least the championship. It's going to be at Columbus State, but I know you're going to be excited, especially if you can get to the quarterfinals like last year and really have a home game right there in Macon, as you ended up winning in the quarterfinals at Stratford. But, you got to go on the road to Bruton Parker, which is not too far away from you guys. But what's it looking like to possibly maybe meet up again with Piedmont Academy and try to avenge that
hold on,
Final Four
Richard.
loss?
Piedmont is actually in 3A. They wouldn't be playing
They did.
Piedmont. Yeah,
I'm looking.
Piedmont's
Okay,
actually in 3A. That you're looking at
good catch.
the
I'm looking
bracket
at
from
last year's.
year.
Looking at the bracket from last year. Thank you. That was a great catch. So you don't have to play Piedmont, but what would it mean to actually get to the Final Four and the championship at Columbus State?
Well, it'd actually be great because in reality, Piedmont is the team that beat us in the Final Four for the last 2 years. So that was the road that we were trying to, the bump that we were trying to get over in the road. But right now, I say we're off to a great start once again. Everything coming together at the right time. So if we continue to work hard, I feel like we can get to that next step, which would be to compete for the championship if possible.
Well, Coach, what are some of the things that you would like your team to kind of work on here? You got a couple more games before you end the season. You have Brentwood, Trinity Christian, Gatewood, and then Windsor Academy heading into maybe an area region tournament that turns into quarterfinals. What do you want to work on with your team? What's your message to your team to finish out strong as you head into the playoffs?
Just continue to build on what we have. Stay connected as one, like a whole group. Stay focused on the goal. Just take everything day by day, and whatever meant to be, it's just meant to be.
Well, Coach, I do got to ask, what makes Central Fellowship so special? You made mention about your daughters, but Central Fellowship, the school, it seems like this is some place you like to call home. And you've had a lot of success, obviously, as you made mention, 5 Final Four state championships. But why is this place a place that you like to call home, other than beside the fact of your daughters too?
It's a great Christian school. The great environment to be in, a family environment. Always willing to give back to the community. It's just been a perfect fit for not only my family, but it seemed like for all the families that are involved in just being a part of this. I call just family. It's just being a part of the family.
Yeah, family atmosphere. His name is Harold Riley. His team is 18-1. They're ranked number 1. They played in Final Four state championship and trying to get back there this year. Coach, thank you so much. Good luck the rest of the season, and we hope maybe we'll see you at Columbus State University for a state championship down the road.
I appreciate you guys for having me.
It is Coach Harold Riley, one of the best coaches we have in the GIAA. We'll take a break. When we come back, it's Coach Job Jerome of Heritage here on Inside the GIAA.
This copyrighted broadcast, presented exclusively on GIAA.tv, is copyrighted by the Georgia Independent Athletic Association, a division of the Georgia Independent School Association, for the private use of our audience. It may not be retransmitted, reproduced, rebroadcast, or otherwise distributed or used in any form without the express written consent of the Georgia Independent School Association.
We're back here now on Inside the GIAA, from one great coach to the next. This guy I have been following for quite some time, and he is the leader of the head of the Heritage Hawks program. His name is Coach Job Jerome. He's one of the brightest minds we got in the GIAA. Coach, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. Appreciate y'all.
All right, Coach, I'm going to start here, man. For one, you've made the consecutive state championship, and you came up just short. I was on the call last year. I don't want to bring up old wounds, Coach, but you had to replace a lot of offense, okay? Yeah. You got to replace a lot of elite, talented players, and it seems like the old saying they said about Alabama and USC back in the day, you don't rebuild, you reload. You already built the program. So why is it you're having success again after losing a bunch of production on the offense side of the ball?
Well, we lost a lot, but we also returned 2 starters who were there with us last year and got to learn from those guys that were with me for a while. So our 2 captains, Sam Mead and Baron Ofusu Korting, are doing a good job of leading this younger crew we have, and they're doing a really good job of attacking practice every day, off the floor stuff, handling business in the classroom. So it's been fun with this group.
Coach, last year your team was not only in 3A, but you were in the same region with a bunch of 4A schools. And in
Yeah.
fact, you took on Pacelli in the region tournament up there in Noonan. Now that you're in 2A, you're ranked number 1 right now. What did you learn from
We
playing a
are.
tough schedule
We're
and
one.
Yes.
going in the rankings? Yes, you are, Coach. I don't know if
Yeah, Coach. I don't know if this was a shock to you. We just did the rankings. You're ranked number 1 in 3 and 2A right now.
We were 3 on
Last week.
Wednesday. Yeah,
Yeah.
last
yeah,
week.
we were
Yeah.
3. Yeah, but I mean, I checked Tuesday, and then we played Martin Luther King Day, and we were 3, and I haven't checked since then. So this is news to me. Thank you.
But playing that tough schedule and
Yeah.
playing in 2A, what is that going to help you prepare to try to get back to the championship game and possibly win it all and trying to make it back to Columbus State?
Yeah, so I always try to make the schedule as hard as I can, especially the out of conference schedule.
Yeah.
So when we do get back to our district play, our region play, not that it's easier, but it's just we've been through a lot of the battles and adversity stuff. We know the moments that when the moments happen, who steps up in that moment, who's getting the ball in those moments, playing it against those GHSA schools. So we always try to do that, and then playing in 2A. The region's a little bit different, of course, not having Pacelli, but Furtop Prep is in our region, and they're on a nice little run themselves. So, and I know they were 2, so we must have jumped them. And Brentwood, I didn't think Brentwood was going to fall with the ratings and stuff. So I got to go and check. This is news to me. I got to go check out Max Preps and see what's going on, with the snow and everything.
Okay.
So. And the snow days, I haven't really been checking Max Preps, but I'm definitely gonna check when we get off here.
Well, Coach, you've done an excellent job with this heritage program. And I want to kind of give a back history and allow you to have the opportunity to talk about, and that's what this platform's for, how you stepped into this role as a leader of heritage. Give us a synopsis of why basketball is a love of yours. Where did you play ball? Where did you learn? Who did you learn from? Who were some of those
Yeah.
coaches that were influencing you that led you to this moment now, leading Heritage, one of the top programs, regardless of classification in
Yeah.
the GIAA?
Well, I started playing basketball. I'm originally from New York, and I started playing in 7th grade. Miss Ebanks. I went to a rec center. I was a football player, and I went to a rec center with my friends. And Miss Ebanks saw me in the crowd one day, and she just pulled me aside and said, "You're playing." And ever since then, I just had a love for the game. I moved to Georgia my junior year of high school, attended Wheeler High School. So I learned from one of the best coaches ever in Georgia history, Coach Doug Lipscomb. His name is on the gym right now at Wheeler, so I learned from him. My uncle's a big time basketball player too, who runs the Game Elite program. I've been around him my whole life, so learning from him. And then going to college, I played for Pat Kelsey, who's now the head coach at Louisville.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, my
He's
last
doing a
2 years.
great job, man.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I played under him my last 2 years at Winthrop, and a lot of the things I do now, I credit to him just because of how competitive he made practice and the games, and I try to do that with my group now, and just learning from those guys, helped me a lot. And then when I came here as an assistant coach, Coach Mark Lieberman, that's just another brain, another guy who taught me a lot of things, the ins and out of coaching. He kind of let me run practices as an assistant coach and do a lot of the film study and all that other stuff. So, but he was big on details, and that's what I'm big with my guys now since I've taken the head coach, just details of the scouting report, school, off the floor, how you eat and how you take care of your body. So, yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Coach, I'm glad you made mention. Did not know you played at Winthrop.
Yes,
So that is
sir.
a
Yes,
really
sir.
awesome story, man. Didn't know you were from New York either. And that's
Yep,
the
yep,
whole
yep.
purpose of having you on. But let's go to your team this year, man. You're on an 8-game winning streak. You were
Yep.
6-5.
Yeah.
And then you've won now, rattled off 8 in a row. You made mention about playing that tough schedule. Do you feel like your team's playing its best ball? And if not, what are some of the things you want to really work on, as you made mention, these tough games you got coming up for top prep to finish out
Yep.
the rest of the year?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think we're playing our best right now, but they're doing a really good job of focusing and locking in. But there's still another level I think we can go to. We got 2 8th graders who are still learning how to play. and one of them, Makari, has a ton of upside where he can be more of a defensive. He's doing a good job now, but he could be even more defensively. And my other little eighth grader, Carter Gates, is he's doing a good job. He's a point guard of talking and speaking up and putting guys in the right place, not being afraid to talk and do that. And then everybody else we have, stepping up into new roles, they're doing their job as well, making shots. So, but I still think with our seniors, there's another level we can go to. And hopefully it's down the stretch. We see it coming up here now.
Yeah, and I got to make mention one more time before you ask, Richard. They still got to play Pacelli, correct? You have Pacelli home and home, or is
We're
it with
working. We're working on it. We're
I know
trying to
it's
get it
hard.
done. Yeah, because of the snow. We were supposed to play them Tuesday, actually,
Yeah,
but we've been snowed out. We actually don't have school tomorrow, and then all the Fridays for the rest of the year are booked for us. So I'm trying to see if we can get a Saturday, just because of my schedule.
yeah,
Monday through Thursday, it's going to be hard to do that. So, but we're working on it. We're trying. We owe them one. They got
yeah,
us. They gave us a good one earlier in the year.
yeah. It was excellent. Go ahead, Richard.
Coach, Noonan is a special town near and dear to my heart. It's also where they filmed The Walking Dead. Alan
Yep.
Jackson's from Noonan. But what makes Heritage special about coming to Heritage? I know you got all the other great schools around Noonan, but you got Heritage, which, visiting your campus for the region tournament last year, you got a beautiful campus.
Yep.
Just what makes Heritage in Noonan special?
The people, man. It's a small school. Everybody knows everyone. And it's just a family atmosphere there. Everybody's kids goes there, supports during the games, the football, basketball, baseball, no matter what it is. Our head of school, Miss Skelly, and then our athletic director, Coach Copeland, they do a good job of making sure we keep that family atmosphere at the school. So I would say that's the biggest thing there. And then the kids we have there are amazing. I mean, everything is yes sir, no sir. We don't have any kids skipping class. Everybody's doing their job in the classroom because we have those smaller class sizes. Everybody's held accountable. So I would say that is the biggest thing: the family, and then the kids there at the school.
His name is Coach Job Jerome. He played D1 basketball. He's got a great program at Heritage. And, Coach, good luck the rest of the season. And knowing how your programs are, we're probably going to be seeing you down the road
I
at
hope
Columbus
so.
State
I hope
University.
so. I hope so, man. I hope so. The guys are
Absolutely.
doing well. So hope to see you guys there.
All right, thanks, Coach, and we'll talk to
Thanks,
you later.
Coach.
We're going to take a
Appreciate y'all.
quick break. When we come back, we got some updates with swim with Richard and Coach Butler here on Inside the GIAA.
GIAA.tv now brings you more live coverage of more sports than ever before. Announcing GIAA.tv Lite with live coverage of swim, wrestling, cheer, and more. GIAA.tv Lite is the next best thing to being there. From one screen, you will hear the crowd, see the action, the scores, the stats, and more. With no play-by-play or instant replays, GIAA.tv Lite is half the price of our regular broadcast. Announcing GIAA.tv Plus. With all of your fan favorites, GIAA.tv Plus now adds volleyball, softball, all-star football, and more. Featuring all the play-by-play, instant replays, multiple angles, and more, all for less than the cost of 2 adult tickets to the event. Don't miss 1 second of the action all year long, only on GIAA.tv.
All right, can you hear me? Oh, I can't hear you.
Welcome back to Inside the GIAA. I am with the aquatics director of Tallulah Falls, Coach Harrison Butler, as we got a big swim meet that is coming up on February the 1st. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to talk about swimming. It is my favorite sport, and I think it has a lot of spectator potential.
Absolutely. You're talking about that swimming meet on February the 1st is going to be held at Georgia Tech, pretty much the same aquatic center that actually hosted the 1996 Olympics, I believe. But let's talk about some of the meets that have happened this past swim season. As the regular season started in November, it's it's weird because it's in the winter, but you got the indoor pool at local aquatic centers. Not every campus has a industrial sized swimming pool to have these meets. But just talk about how the season has gone so far. Where do some of these schools end up going for the swim meets, and talk about some of the swim meets that have happened?
Absolutely. And you bring up a good point. Like, a lot of these invitationals that you'll have in swimming, you have teams coming from all over the state, especially coming to those Atlanta pools like UGA or Georgia Tech. You got GHSA schools, you got GIAA schools. So it's usually a really big meets. So I wanted to highlight a couple meets that happened this past weekend. We had the Howard School Winter Invitational. That was at Georgia Tech. And a couple big players here, because you had Brookstone School and Rivers Academy, which are your defending champs in the GIAA from 2024. Now, I wanted to highlight a couple swimmers that were putting up times that 2 weeks before the meet would have been placing top 8, which is how you score your points at the meet. You got on the women's side from Brookstone, you got Lauren Kennedy putting up 55-1, 25-4, 50 and 100 free. Both would have been 4th already in the GIAA. From Rivers Academy, you got Ezekiel Curry, 49-2, 100 free, 210, 2 IM. Both of those are getting top 8 already, and you're 2 weeks out. Additionally, Oak Mountain, Charlie Bartlett, 155, 2 free. That's getting 6th already. And something to talk about in swimming is it's probably more similar to track and field, but a lot of these guys aren't showing their cards until the last moment. So we're swimming through meets. These guys are tired, and usually you're expecting some pretty big time drops going into the state champs meet. So having some results that are already in that top 8 2 weeks out, that's showing some really good promise.
Yeah, you mentioned the defending swim champions are Rivers Academy for the boys, Brookstone for the girls. I'm actually looking at the swim records from last season, and you've got Cooper McDonald from Rivers Academy who ended up setting the record for the 200 meter at the varsity. I expect some records to be broken this upcoming swim meet on February 1st, but going into this swim meet, how many teams qualify, or is it like an individual sport? And what teams are we going to expect to see at Georgia Tech on the 1st?
So in general, it's going to be a little bit more of an individual sport, as the teams don't qualify, but the individual swimmers on each team qualify. I don't have exactly how many teams are qualified now. Usually it's between 20 and 30 teams are there. But you talked about Cooper McDonald, who was a phenomenal standout swimmer last year, went on to swim for Indiana and has been a standout swimmer there. That really was some incredible talent. A couple highlights I'd like to make. There was already a time that was faster than the GIAA record at Tallulah Falls recent invitational. We had the Light in the Mountains invite, which is a big meet that I'm the meet director for. We try and a lot of high energy. It's a prelim finals meet. And the TFS girls, this being their first year in the GIAA, put up a 150.1 2 medley relay, which took a half a second off the previous GIAA record. And we're not even at the meet yet. So when you're saying records are going to fall, I think you're on the right track there, as we're seeing some really fast swimming early. In general, yes. I think a big factor coming into this meet is going to be those TFS girls really showing up as a disruptor in their first year coming into GIAA.
Absolutely. And you had several meets earlier this month on the 11th, and then you had one, I believe, on the 18th at Tallulah Falls. Some of the other meets around the area that were scheduled, we had Westminster Schools of Augusta hosting at the Augusta Aquatic Center. Westfield School was supposed to host a swim meet. I don't know, did the swim meet go on, or did they have to postpone that because of the inclement weather?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen the results come through yet on Meet Mobile or on SwimCloud. Usually it takes a couple days to post, but I know there were a lot of disruptions from the weather really over just the past 2 weeks now. We've had a lot of schedule changes coming in.
Absolutely. The final swim meet before the state competition is scheduled this Saturday at the Howard School, which is going to be at Georgia Tech. I'm not sure if they'll have an opportunity to make up some of these swim meets. But how are these teams just getting prepared for this swim meet at Georgia Tech on February the 1st?
I think at this point, the stage is set, right? You have your swimmers that are qualified, and now it's all just let's focus in. What details can we switch coming in? How can we train a little bit better? And how can we raise our performance so that we're dropping a couple seconds per 100 and trying to get into that top 8? Because at the GIAA meet, you've got, let's say you have 40 swimmers in an event. If you're not scoring in the top 8, you're not scoring points. So you've got to really try and find that gap in between, hey, what would be maybe a 10th or 11th place swim and what's going to be a 7th and 8th place swim, and what kind of details or can we improve on to get to that point. So I think moving forward, a lot of these coaches are thinking details, starts, turns. How can we be quick off those walls? How can we finish really fast in every race, and just focusing on how to take off those 0.1, 0.2.
Well, Coach, I'm looking forward to the swim meet on the 1st, and good luck, and we definitely appreciate you being on Inside the GIAA.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, that was the Tallulah Falls Swim Aquatics Director, Coach Harrison Butler. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, Thrift Barringer is going to have the Pacelli wrestling coach, Coach Adrian Anderson, as you're watching Inside the GIAA on GIAA.tv.
This copyrighted broadcast, presented exclusively on GIAA.tv, is copyrighted by the Georgia Independent Athletic Association, a division of the Georgia Independent School Association, for the private use of our audience. It may not be retransmitted, reproduced, rebroadcast, or otherwise distributed or used in any form without the express written consent of the Georgia Independent School Association.
And we are back here on Inside the GIAA, and now with the man, the myth, the legend. His name is Coach Adrian Anderson. As Richard may mention, he does lead the Pacelli wrestling program, but he is a wrestling advocate and our wrestling correspondent throughout the year. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate you having me from the kitchen here. I cleaned up just for y'all.
We appreciate that, Coach. I'm glad that we got that honor of your kitchen being clean here on Inside the GIAA. All right. Coach, you love growing the sport, and you love the sport getting notoriety, and you really opened my eyes as here in the local area. We try to do as many wrestling matches as we can because of you really pulling a string with me about how hard it is to play this sport and how awesome of a sport it is for those who've never watched. I know you want to start with the girls because that's the one that's growing rapidly here in the GIAA. So floor is yours. Give an update on what's happening in girls wrestling right now.
Girls wrestling is blowing up everywhere, and it's amazing. We actually have 4 of the top girls in the state in the GIAA. Probably the number 1 or number 2 girl in the state, Kara Mitchell at Mount DeSale. She's only has 1 loss this year. She's won Queen of the County, the Greenbrier Tournament, the Gulf Coast Classic. Has just been outstanding all year. Of course, we have Sophia Shervanek here at Pacelli. She has won the CRWA. I think she won Alexander, placed 3rd in the Queen of the County, and placed 3rd in another tournament. And, of course, Michaela Batchelor has been in and out, dealing with injuries a little bit. Kira last year was in the finals of the National Prep Tournament. Michaela and Sophia were both in the blood round and just missed the podium. And of course, there's 2 new faces on there that are starting to get noticed. Amberlyn Hardy out of Mount DeSales and Grace Rogers here at Pacelli have gotten there, started to getting a lot of notices. They've both placed in every tournament that they've been in. So, growing the girls has been great, and it's been exciting.
Coach Anderson, when I'm looking at wrestling, you go to GIAAsports.org, you look at wrestling, and for the boys, there is a ton of teams, Coach Anderson, 4 regions, and they're all playing under one classification to win a championship, which means it is extremely tough to win a state championship. So kind of give us an update on what's happening. You've won back-to-back at Pacelli, but there are some excellent programs around the GIAA. They're trying to come after that crown.
Oh, absolutely. And it's that's the way we want it. I hope they never go to classifications. I don't care if there's 100 teams in there, one classification. Let's have a state champion.
Yep.
Well, right now, I mean, we're looking at the boys with the duels coming up. Of course, the big thing you have to look at, Athens Christian. They're awesome. They placed fifth at the I'm sorry, I got all my notes over here at the Prep Slam at Holy Innocents. They were the number one placing team.
Wow.
From the state of Georgia in the Prep Slam. They placed ahead of Lovett, who just almost tied for a state championship right down the street here with Rockmart. Lost the state championship on criteria. Ahead of Holy Innocents, ahead of Woodward, ahead of Westminster. They're pretty special. Looking at them, I mean, they've got Araya Mills at 106, one of the number one ranked wrestlers from our state. He was our highest placer, placed fifth. They actually had other placers. Nathan Manos, 113-pounder, got second. Tanner Hunt got second. Gabe Burns got third. Really good team out there, and they are the hands-on favorite for the duels coming up. It's really a race for second place at this point. I don't see that anybody else can catch them. They're just too good, too deep all the way through, and they've got some real top-end talent.
Well, Coach Anderson, kind of explain for those that really don't understand wrestling. When you talk about duels and then there's the team state championship match, talk about what you mean by that with duels and how that kind of breaks down this upcoming weekend.
Okay, so the duels is I take my team, Pacelli, and I wrestle, your team, Brookstone, and, for every pin you get 6 points. For a major decision, you get 4. For a tech fall, you get 5. For a minor, your team gets 3. And you advance as a team. Really a lot more difficult coaching-wise to do. The traditional tournament, every wrestler is in their individual brackets. You don't advance with your team. You advance individually through the tournament. And it's a lot of times the best tournament team and the best dual team are not the same. We'll see that in the GHSA this year, and we'll see that I don't know if we'll see it this year in the GIAA. We've certainly seen it the last 2 years. We won the duels both years and finished second in the traditional, and probably got lucky to finish that high.
Yeah, Coach, and we're excited about it. That's coming up this week, and we'll have Commissioner Tommy Marshall to talk about some of those wrestling matches. But what's happening right now for all the wrestlers? That we got the duels coming up, and obviously, we have weather and everything else that's going on that people are having to overcome and deal with. But you got duels, and then after that, the regular state championship. What are some of the things that coaches are doing to get their team prepared for those?
Well, everybody's looking right now to get a lot of their guys, make sure they're healthy. Most teams will back off a lot of their live wrestling this time of year. You're going to see a lot more, guys are drilling a lot more, guys are conditioning a lot more, working on details and it's the short goes and it's the fast goes. And, trying to hone that in and hit that peak, the idea, you don't want to peak in December. I had a team do that one time, and it was kind of embarrassing coming out of the gate and having all these wins, and all of a sudden, you get to the end of the season, they're getting the brakes beat off of them by guys that they were beating earlier in the season. So, coaches and wrestlers are trying to plan to make sure that they are absolutely at their peak. Some of them will work to peak at region, at the area. Some will work to peak at the state. And we have a handful of kids in the GIAA that are working to peak at national preps, which is, of course, the end of our season. We love national preps. That's been the biggest draw for GIAA wrestling. I think GIAA wrestling can really take over and become the bell cow with our tie-in with national preps. That's been really good for us.
His name is Coach Adrian Anderson. He's a Hall of Famer. He's done an amazing job building up the sport and promoting the sport, and he is our correspondent every single week, updating what's happening in the wrestling world. Coach Anderson, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you soon, man, and appreciate you joining the show.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day. That
is Coach Adrian Anderson. We'll take a break. We come back. It is me and Richard with Commissioner's Corner on Inside the GIAA.
GIAA.TV now brings you more live coverage of more sports than ever before. Announcing GIAA.TV Lite with live coverage of swim, wrestling, cheer, and more. GIAA.TV Lite is the next best thing to being there. From one screen, you will hear the crowd, see the action, the scores, the stats, and more. With no play-by-play or instant replays, GIAA.TV Lite is half the price of our regular broadcast. Announcing GIAA.TV Plus. With all of your fan favorites, GIAA.TV Plus now adds volleyball, softball, all-star football, and more. Featuring all the play-by-play, instant replays, multiple angles, and more, all for less than the cost of 2 adult tickets to the event. Don't miss 1 second of the action all year long, only on GIAA.TV.
And it is time for my favorite segment. I know it's your favorite segment too, Richard. It is Commissioner's Corner, and we're going to bring on the Commissioner, Hall of Famer, NIAAA Hall of Famer, Coach Tommy Marshall. Coach, thank you again for joining the program.
Hey, man, be careful what you talk about. You can get in trouble. Coach Anderson did a great job. You know, that happens this weekend. George Walton and Mark Whitley and his staff will host it. The concession stand that Mark runs. Barbecue, it's got everything. But I think the highlight is going to be we have more teams than ever. The great thing about dual wrestling that Coach did bring up, there's strategy involved. You can switch kids' weight classes if they qualify, depending on your chances of beating that young man. So there is a strategy involved. In the traditional, it's straight through. It's one weight class. They stay there, but the focus in the team and the dual is not on the individual, it's on the team. You can keep from getting pinned and win a state championship just by not doing that. So it depends on all the matchups. It's like playing chess on the wrestling match, and more teams than ever involved this weekend at George Walton. And I love to highlight our schools to host things because they're opening up their campus. People are coming up to their campus, and this is going to be an all-day event. It will be exciting, I can tell you that. And then, of course, you had Coach Joe and talking, and we talked about swimming already at Georgia Tech. We have that coming up after duels. And I want to thank Kat Stansberry from the Howard School and her staff. She directs that meet. But being at Georgia Tech and picturing the Olympics there, and it is a first class. Our kids love being down there. Our parents, our schools. There's hollering and yelling and cheering, and it goes on for 4 straight hours. And it will be tight. And you're right, records will be broken. And then, of course, after that, you have traditional wrestling coming through, and that's hosted. We're going upstate now. We're going to Gainesville. We're going to North Georgia, to Riverside Prep. If you've never seen their military campus, it is gorgeous.
Wow.
Looks out over Lake Lanier, and the practice fields are right off of there. And it's just a beautiful campus that many of our people will never see. For them to host traditional wrestling with all the kids coming up there, a big thank you to them. I think their hosts, they do it the right way, and I think it turns out well. And then, of course, we've got bass fishing, which took place last weekend. We got it in.
Oh, wow.
And Terrell Academy, Bill Murdoch ran it, and Terrell won it. And then I think February 22nd, there's another one at West Point Lake, a big bass tournament. So we're right in the middle of that. Archery. How many times has archery been canceled?
Yes, we were just going to ask that. We were just going to ask that.
Sport. Come
on.
And canceled by what? Snow.
Right.
In Georgia. So we have Plan C on that. We're going to split it up at Georgia Southern, split up the middle school and the high school archery and have that. But what a great story for Georgia to have to plan it 3 times according to the weather and snow. That hasn't happened at all.
Yeah, no, a long time, Commissioner Marshall, for sure.
Well, and that's it. And then, of course, you had basketball on, and I loved hearing Coach Joe and his story and all that. But as this comes down, we have the first couple rounds. They're hosted by the higher seed.
Yep.
And then we come to Macon for the semifinals, and have to thank Tatnall Square and FPD and Stratford. Their schools do a great job hosting those events. Sometimes they're not in them. They still host them in one part of the state. They're 10 miles apart, and you can see it. It creates excitement in the Macon area. And those who have the semis there. Then, of course, we moved to Columbus State, where Coach Joe, he wants to have a reservation there.
Yes.
That's
he
for
does.
For the finals, and that happens. But thanks to Mary Sherman and the Columbus Sports Council, who rolls out the red carpet for us.
Yep.
Does a great job at Columbus State. That will be packed with all kinds of teams and different things. And we get excited about that. And then, of course, if you look down the road, you've got all your spring sports starting. There's an excitement, and you can sort of feel it starting to rumble with this first state championship. So you got both wrestling, you got swimming, you got basketball, you got archery, you got bass fishing, not including all the spring sports. And they're going to bust here next week and get started in a week or two. They have their first day that they can play. So there's so many things going on that are exciting. But again, I need to be able to thank our people that host our events.
Yes.
Because you're opening up your campus, much like Heritage did for volleyball, even during the weekday. That's what it's all about. That's when you have to thank people. We have our venues at Columbus State and Mercer and Georgia Tech and all over the state, Bruton Parker and some of those for basketball. But the people that step up and volunteer, because we can only do so much as a staff. We count on our schools and our volunteers. And I think that's what makes this organization special.
I think that is a great point, Commissioner Marshall. Go ahead, Richard.
Commissioner Marshall, have they made a decision about where the venues are going to be for the spring sports? I know I was going on the GIAA website, and I know that some of the spring sports like tennis, baseball, it's to be determined. But do you guys have an idea of where the venues might have the spring sports championships?
Yeah, we're just trying to make sure we finalize everything. The reason we're up there now is because if we haven't signed a contract and met with them, that means there may be some questions. But right now, I think they're all set. And I'll make sure they get them up on the website tomorrow. I'm pretty sure where they are, but I don't want to give you any bad information that we have to redo. But of course, you got the tennis centers, both of them there in Macon, that host a bunch of them for individual and spring. We have, of course, track meets and, of course, all the different venues, lacrosse, some new teams added to lacrosse and different things. So I think there's some great news coming through that we'll put on there, but we don't want to take anything away right now from our winter sports. We'll get those up. I'll make sure we get those up on the website because I'm almost positive they've all been sealed and delivered and ready to go.
His name is Tommy Marshall. He's commissioner of the GIAA and joining us here on Inside the GIAA. One more question, Commissioner Marshall. We want to talk about the Leadership Academy. We made mention of it last week. I want to talk about it again this week. I think this is an awesome avenue for up-and-coming young coaches, old or young, to be able to learn here. I think it's going to be awesome.
Amen. I think it's one of the special things we're doing to try to elevate the job of athletic director. Many times in a school, it's sort of the next guy up. We want to make sure it's somebody that's motivated because of all the challenges that athletic directors around the state face from week to week, whether it's scheduling, parents, transportation, buses. They wear a lot of hats at our different size school, from our smallest schools to the biggest schools. And the responsibilities aren't the same. No day looks alike.
Nope.
But in my book, they're all Hall of Famers, as you know. Anytime they do this, there's a lot of training that goes into it. I've been there where they just say, here, take this, you're the coach. Or take this, you're the athletic director. But we're trying to prepare those guys that are motivated, that want to do it, and let them have an idea of what they're getting into before they take on the job. And that's what it's for. There's hands-on. There's a symposium at Georgia Southern in the fall. Our coaches clinic in June is our first step where we're staying after our coaching clinic and meet with those people. That's our first meeting. And so there's 3 or 4 phases they have to go through, a year-long process, but then you know who to pinpoint, who really wants to do it. Because there's a big difference in assigning somebody saying, hey, I want this, I can do it, I'm trained to do it. I want to make my community better. I want to make it all about the coaches and kids. And when they say that, they're on the right track right there. So that's what we're trying to do, is maybe pinpoint those people earlier. Maybe you don't let them go from your school if they're really interested in a position. You may try to keep them there longer, knowing that they're willing to step up and do whatever it takes.
Well, Coach
and it
Marshall,
could create opportunities in another school. They've had this training, an opportunity opens at a school somewhere else, and they go, hey, I've had this, it's on my resume, I know what I'm getting into. And then when they sit in an interview, they're a lot more comfortable sitting in front of people and they've had the training.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. And we are looking forward to it. And hopefully we can be there too to kind of enlighten all the coaches and the players and everything else about this Inside the GIAA show that we have, to bring exposure to everything happening around our great league.
I love it. Love it. I think that's what we're all about right now.
Yeah.
Trying to get some more exposure for our student athletes, our kids. I said it last week, we have so many great stories to tell in the GIAA, from coaches to kids to our communities, to parents. As you guys have already seen a snippet in what you've done for the 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I can imagine how this is just going to develop all the way down and let people know who we are, but more important, what we're about.
No doubt.
What we represent.
Absolutely.
His name is Commissioner Tommy Marshall, and this is Commissioner's Corner. Thank you so much, and we'll be talking to you next week.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.
All right,
appreciate you all.
Yes, sir. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap it up here on Inside the GIAA.
This copyrighted broadcast, presented exclusively on GIAA.tv, is copyrighted by the Georgia Independent Athletic Association, a division of the Georgia Independent School Association, for the private use of our audience. It may not be retransmitted, reproduced, rebroadcast, or otherwise distributed or used in any form without the express written consent of the Georgia Independent School Association.
All right, we're back here on Inside the GIAA. What a show, Richard. Great guest and a few good minutes with Coach Job Jerome of the Heritage Hawks, who has his team ranked number 1 in 2A. You got Central Fellowship head coach Harold Riley, who has his team ranked number 1 in girls in 2A. Both these guys have played in Final Fours and state championship for many years over the last 5 or 6 seasons. Of course, we talked with Coach Adrian Anderson about wrestling. He's a wrestling correspondent. You talked with Coach Harrison Butler about swimming. And then we had, of course, Coach Tommy Marshall. We did our rankings, just a bunch, and it was a lot of fun. And we're going to be doing this every single Wednesday here on GIAA.tv.
Oh, yeah. Cannot wait till next week's episode. Hopefully we'll get some games in. Hopefully this weather will get better, and the snow will melt, and we can get the kids back to school, and we can start playing some games. And hopefully they can get these games in this weekend.
No doubt about it. Well, everyone stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you next week, as this is presented by the Beck Center. Thank you to Roger Beck. All state championship games are presented by the Beck Center. This show is presented by the Beck Center, and we appreciate Roger Beck, the Beck Center of Academic and Athletic Success, for the support of Inside the GIAA and all things GIAA related. From Richard Holdridge, I'm Thrift Barringer, saying thank y'all so much for watching. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, on Inside the GIAA.
GIAA.tv now brings you more live coverage of more sports than ever before. Announcing GIAA.tv Lite, with live coverage of swim, wrestling, cheer, and more. GIAA.tv Lite is the next best thing to being there. From one screen, you will hear the crowd, see the action, the scores, the stats, and more. With no play-by-play or instant replays, GIAA.tv Lite is half the price of our regular broadcast. Announcing GIAA.tv Plus, with all of your fan favorites. GIAA.tv Plus now adds volleyball, softball, all-star football, and more, featuring all the play-by-play, instant replays, multiple angles, and more, all for less than the cost of 2 adult tickets to the event. Don't miss 1 second of the action all year long, only on GIAA.tv.